Well, I'm going to take the handoff and hand it off real quick. When we kind of put the agenda together, it makes sense for me to have a canvas on which to paint everything. The exercises later where we can listen from you, your opinions, your thoughts on where the MSA can lead snowmobiling in the future. But let's take a look at the history first. And I learned back in April, and actually going back further than that, that we've got some great historians with us, and one of them is the executive director, Bill. So why don't we start with Bill, have him kind of give us the history of the MSA in a capsulized format so we know where we came from.
Okay, I'll try to make this fairly quick so we can get things rolling here, but just to give you guys a little brief history of MSA. In 1981, there was 3 snowmobile associations, actually through the early 70s through 1981. There was 3 snowmobile associations in the state. One was called the Michigan Association of Recreational Snowmobilers. That was called MARS for short. There was the Michigan International Snowmobile Association, which was MISA. They did a little bit more toward racing, where MARS was more toward recreation. And then there was the Michigan Upper Peninsula Snowmobile Association. Of course, back in the 70s, any of you guys that knew that, there was 125 different manufacturers making snowmobiles. There was a lot of competition for money from these manufacturers to help out this association, that association, help put trails in. As they started dwindling, the manufacturers said, look, you know, enough is enough. You guys got to figure out, we can't be dealing with MISA and MARS and MUPSA. And there just isn't enough money to go around anymore. The snowmobile dealerships or the snowmobile manufacturers are drying up, and you guys need to do something. So actually in southeast Michigan, or I'm sorry, southwest Michigan, one of the main councils down in southern Michigan, their people got together, started bringing MARS and MISA people together, and came up with a plan. In 1982, Michigan Snowmobile Association was incorporated. And ironically, there used to be a Michigan Snowmobile Association before that, but that morphed into MISA as more racing got involved with that group. So in 1982 it was incorporated. January 83, they had agreements from MARS and MISA and transferred all of their memberships over to the Michigan Snowmobile Association. February of 1983, they had their first general membership meeting. They had 232 members total. 1983, MUPSA joined in, transferred all their membership over to MSA to complete the upper and lower, so there was truly one association in the state in March 1983. May of 83, the first full board of directors meeting was held in Marquette. 16 different council areas were represented. Council areas are basically made up of either trail networks or groups of clubs in different areas. We got some council maps that we'll pass out here. Guess we missed those. Anyway, yeah, go ahead and pass them on. So the council areas that are right now were different back in 83 as clubs were bigger and smaller. Trails morphed into different grant sponsors and so on. September 83, a special membership meeting was held to change the bylaws to create an executive committee. This executive committee was to act instead of the full board of directors, because we had board members from the western UP, southern West Michigan, southeast Michigan. We didn't have anybody at that time other than, actually one club wasn't even started. The Snowmads didn't start until 85, was it? Somewhere around in there.
We just had our 20th, so it would have been 83. So.
Yeah, 83. Okay, so so we had some members at large. We created the executive committee, which we'll go over that little flow chart when I'm done here in a minute, just so you can see how MSA is made up. The executive committee would be made up of 4 officers, past presidents, 9 delegates chosen from the respective regions, and they were to meet every 3 to 4 months. And the reason behind this was less travel, better communication, ability to focus more on regional issues. February 1984, we had our second annual meeting in Cadillac. We were now up to 908 members, 18 council member areas. The hot button issues in 1984 were 3-wheelers on the snowmobile trails. And one other issue was out-of-state user fees. Pretty interesting. September 1984 saw the legislature remove the out-of-state user fee, which was put in early 1984. May 1985, there were 4 manufacturers, and they created the International Snowmobile Industry Association. And so there was now all 4 of them working together with state associations. 1987, the Michigan legislature passed the Recreational Improvement Fund, which basically created a fund off the 2% of all the gasoline tax sold. Used to be the boaters were the only ones that were tapping into this gasoline tax funds. They restructured it, so 2% created the fund, 80% still went to the boating program, but 14% went to the Snowmobile Trail Improvement Fund. Then the 6% was used by others, and also to repair damage from ATVs. 1989, that membership was now up to 4,800, and the topic of the day in 1989 was what to do about increased fuel costs. Jumped from 37 cents a gallon to a buck, you know.
If we only knew.
Yeah. March 91, we were working with legislators, passed legislation to revise the current registration law and also to direct only a certain amount of funds to the Secretary of State, which were taking more than they should have, to put us in the lien system and to register snowmobiles. At that time, a mandatory registration at the time of sale was passed, along with a mandatory helmet use. And the reason for the mandatory helmet use was passed because we had a real run on skiers dying on snowmobiles. They would go up to a ski hill, rent snowmobiles after skiing for a couple of days, get tired, and then they go out on the trails and promptly hit trees and kill themselves because real snowmobilers wore helmets to keep their ears warm, where the snowmobilers just wear the skiers just wear the beating caps.
You find that funny?
He is a sick one, I told you that.
March 93 legislation was introduced to take the registration fee to $22. So it's still $22, so you know, that was back in 1993. And a grant program for the sheriffs was started out of that money. And 93 passed legislation giving landowners that allow more protection, trails through their properties, more protections from lawsuits. 94 legislation was raising the passed for a trail permit fee of $10 per snowmobile. And the Snowmobile Advisory Committee was put into law. December 94, membership was up to 13,000. April 95, fishermen were exempted from the trail permit because they were only using their sleds from the shore out to their shanties. So to be exempt, you had to have a fishing pole along with you and be able to point out where you were going fishing. 95, we were up to 14,000. 1996, sled dogs were the talk of the time. We were having issues with sled doggers on our trails, waiting for the first set of dogs to be run over. 97, membership was 17,000. 97 also saw the registration decal change and numbers were added to the decal. 97 saw the first ban on studs in Minnesota and started talking about banning them in Michigan, which we were able to fend off.
That was just a couple years.
97 also saw us testing road crossings with MDOT for stud damage. MSA votes not to allow studs to be banned. 98, MSA hired Reith Riley to do research on asphalt, which turned out very well. 98, legislation was tying your driver's license to DUI was passed, which was passed, interesting, so the whole recreation industry went through stiffening up the DUI, but only snowmobiles were tied to the driver's license. Boats and ATVs were not. Imagine that. 1999, the Yellowstone lawsuits were now costing over $100,000 to defend. April 2000 was 4 years had passed without a route around Mullet Lake that the DNR had promised. So we contacted the DNR and reminded them of their promise, and it took another 4 years after that to finally get it. December 2000, bill was introduced to raise the trail permit from $10 to $20, and then again to $25 in 2004. 2002, test plots of asphalt were being put on trails throughout Michigan to test for the stud